Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thank you for tuning in once again. On today's episode, we're going to cover how to change the oil in your vehicle, among some other maintenance items. Before we get started today, I would personally appreciate it if you went down there and clicked like and subscribe. Thank you very much. We're about to change the oil on this Jeep Patriot, and I know that I can get myself underneath here without ramps, but for the purpose of this video, I'm going to go ahead and put this Jeep on these ramps. There you go. While it's on these ramps, I'm going to go ahead and chalk that back wheel. That'll at least keep it from rolling off the ramps. Let's just take a quick peek at the things that I'm going to use to do the service on this vehicle. We'll start over here. Obviously, we're going to need a place to put the old oil. So I have an oil catch pan. I have a funnel that I will clean up for use later when we're going to put the oil back in. I have the oil, in this case Castrol, that's all I use, with an STP oil filter. I have a MicroGuard because that's the only kind I could find, otherwise I would use an STP. This is the air filter that we'll replace also in the course of this maintenance. This is some windshield washer fluid. I mean, you're in there, you might as well fill that up too. Never know when you're going to need it. And this is something that a lot of people forget about, or possibly don't even know exists. This is what is called a cabin air filter. This is what filters the air out coming from the outside. When you have, let's say, your air conditioner on and you're pulling the air or the heat and the air is coming from outside the vehicle. Most cars nowadays have one of these that filters that air coming into the vehicle. Some older cars don't have them, so just look online. You may or may not have this. This particular vehicle does have one, so I'm going to replace it also. It may seem a little strange starting an oil change in the top of the engine bay, but I'm just going to show you one thing or two things that I always do, maybe just out of habit. I like to take the oil cap, at least loosen it and let it set. And what this does is it opens an air passageway, so the oil has to drain down, and that lets air come up through here. So if you've ever poured out a can of soda or poured out a can of oil, you know, it kind of blubs, blub, blub, because the air has to get in behind the liquid. Well, this stops that from happening. It lets the oil flow out easier from the bottom. And I also just kind of pull this up and let it sit. So there's two passages here. I'm going to get you set up underneath and we'll drain this oil. As you can see, it has this plastic kind of cover or skid tray or whatever you want to call it. And it is possible because there's a hole back here and there's a hole right here. That hole is where the oil drain plug is. This hole is where you can get access to the oil filter, but I can't really show you these things with this on, so I'm going to go ahead and quickly take this off so that it will be easier to see the things that I'm accessing. Now that I've got this pan off, I've got you under here, and you can see this is the oil pan, and if I move you just a little bit around here, this is the oil filter here. So pan, filter. This is the drain plug. I'm going to set you back down here. I'm going to go ahead and get the oil drain pan here, and we're going to loosen this plug. I have to figure out what size bolt this is. I've backed you up a little bit here. I've got the drain pan here underneath this oil. It's not going to drip straight down. It's going to have a little bit of pressure behind it, so it's going to kind of come out at an arc. This is a 1/2 inch. Go ahead and loosen this. Always have a roll of towels handy, just like this one. I've torn a couple off here. I'm going to go ahead and loosen this, and you will see why. And there she goes. And it's really, I mean, the oil's dirty, but it's not horrible. Okay, I'm going to pick you up here, let you see that oil is just draining in there. It's going to slow down a little bit, but what I generally do is let this just sit here and drip. I will let this go for at least 10 minutes to complete. The more bad oil you get out, or old oil, the better. I'm gonna let this go off camera, and I'll be back to show you the filter. So I've let this drip for about 10 minutes, and you can see it's still barely dripping, but I'm not gonna be able to get much more oil out of this. Before I move this pan to do the filter, I'm just gonna go ahead and put this back in. So we don't forget, we'll go ahead and tighten that up. And since I'm down here, might as well wipe this off. So I've got you set up here now, and I'm going to pull this pan directly underneath the filter because it's going to drain straight down. So if this was put on correctly, generally you should be able to loosen this by hand, but I'm going to show you this tool. This tool is called a strap wrench, and the way it works is this filter has to come off counterclockwise, and when you put this wrench on, you move this, and you can see this compresses this strap. So we're going to put it on in a way that it will compress onto this filter, and of course this is the large one. I need the small one for this filter. You could, as a last resort, grab this with a pair of slip lock pliers, or in the old days that you should just smash a screwdriver through it. I don't recommend that at all, because then if you can't get this off, you're stuck with a filter with a hole in it, which is useless to you. Now you can't drive your car, and you've got to figure out a way to get this stuck filter off. I'll be right back when I get the right wrench. I am now back, obviously, with the smaller of the strap wrenches. Same philosophy with this wrench, and I'll just show you. Slip this on, it slides around to compress, like so. And then you just use that pressure to loosen the filter. Once you've got it to a point where you don't need the wrench anymore, make sure the pan is under here, grab your towel, and you can just loosen this. Don't loosen it all the way. As soon as it breaks that seal, you're going to have oil start dripping down here. Okay, there we go. We've got oil dripping down. You might as well just let that finish. I'm going to go ahead and get this off. Be very careful. Once you've gotten past all the threads on the filter, it's going to drop off. So be prepared for that. Just like that, it's going to drop off. You want to hold it straight up like this, get it over the pan, and then tip it over. And I'm just going to set this right here in the pan. This pan is specifically designed for this. It has a little filter bay right here where you can set the filter upside down and it will continue to drain out. I know this is at the very top of the screen and I apologize for that, but if you look directly up here, that's where the filter goes. And if you see that red circle, that is the rubber gasket that was on this filter. We need to make sure that does not stay on there. So we're going to take that off right now. It is trash now, no need to keep that. And we're going to wipe this down. So that's the filter off. Now I'm going to show you how to put the new filter on. Here I have the new filter and the new oil. I have opened the oil because I'm going to use a little bit of this to lubricate the gasket on this new filter. So if you take the new filter out, you can see it has a rubber gasket on it right here. And we need to just put a little bit of oil around this, just to make sure that when this meets the metal and you keep twisting it, that it's not going to bunch this up or kind of twist it out of there or do something bad to it. It stays intact. So I'm just going to take a little bit of this fresh oil on my finger and just rub it around this gasket. And that's about all you need. We'll get this put on. If you recall, we cleaned this. We made sure the gasket from the old filter was off of there. Now we've got the new filter. STPs are great filters. Castrol oil and STP, guys. We put a little oil on this new gasket. We're just going to set it up in here and make sure it's threaded correctly. And this is super simple. You don't even need a wrench to put this on. As long as you just get it to where it's touching, so right there, it's just touching that. And you want to try and do 1 1/4 turns. That's all you need. Just enough to seal that. You don't have to wrench this down and torque it to 100 foot-pounds. No need. Hand tight, guys. Hand tight. Make sure it is tight, but you don't need to torque it down. I'm going to move all this stuff out of the way. The old filter, the old oil. We are done down here. We have put the filter on. We've drained the oil. We've made sure we tighten the oil drain plug. And that's it. With the exception of putting the plastic piece back on, which I'm going to do later while you guys aren't looking, we're done down here. I'm going to drag this oil out of here and we're going to go up top. All right, everybody. We have finished all of the underneath pieces. Drain the oil, put the new filter on. Now it's time to put the oil back in. In the manual for this, when you do a filter change for this particular engine, this takes 4.7 quarts of oil. I've cleaned the funnel. It's old, so it looks dirty, but it is very clean. Just gonna put the funnel in here. I'm gonna grab the oil. So I have this oil. Obviously, it's Castrol. But I wanna show you on the side, if I can get this to where you can see it, on the side of this oil, there's a kind of a clear strip here. You can see the oil in here. This has 5 quarts of oil in it, and this engine takes 4.7 quarts. So if you can see, if you go down here, if it gets to here, you pour it in half a quart. So that's 4.5 out of 5. That's a half a quart in. So we want to keep going all the way down until we get 0.5 on this side. Let me show you down here. This 0.5, and just a little bit under that. So we want to get to where it's only 3/10 of a quart left. I'm going to get you set up. We're going to go ahead and pour this oil in. All right, let's check and see how close I am. I am right kind of at the 0.5 mark. So I've got just a tiny bit more to pour in here. And right there, just below 0.5. I'm going to get this funnel out. I'm going to get this cap put back on. And then we're going to do some other things as part of this maintenance. You can see I've spilled a tiny bit of oil here. This engine is dusty, but you can tell it's not oily. And I kind of prefer to keep it that way. So while you're in here, just wipe anything off that you spilled. It's just one towel, and it really doesn't take that much effort to clean it off. Oil in, oil cap on. So here we have the oil dipstick. And if you don't know how to check your oil, well, I guess I'll teach you right now. Very simple. First of all, take it out. You don't even need to look at it and wipe it off. Just make sure the entire thing is wiped and dry. And let's look at how to read this when we do pull this back out again. On this particular dipstick, it has no markings on this side, but on this side, it has these markings. This hash mark right here, I know it might be real hard to see, but this hash mark, anywhere on this hash mark is good. If it's over the hash mark, it's over full. If it's underneath this hash mark, it's not full enough and you need to add a little oil. So we're going to put this in there, and I expect it to be over right now because we have not started the engine, and the filter, which is probably about half a quart, has not taken up its capacity of oil yet. Just pull it straight back out and just take a look at it. So in this case, it looks like we are dead center in that hash, and it's going to go down a tiny bit. But I think we're good. Once we start this, it'll go down a little bit, but the oil is good. It's full enough, and it's clean and fresh. We'll check this again after we've started the car. But prior to that, we're just going to do a couple of more small things. So on this vehicle, we have actually three containers, and they're all kind of tied together in this corner. On your vehicle, they may be, somewhere there or there or there. Who knows? But what these are, this, if you look at the top of this, let me pull this up a little bit, you can see it. That's windshield wiper. This is windshield wiper fluid. So we're going to top this off. It's fairly full. You can see it here, this orange. But since you're in here already, and if we do have some, go ahead and top it off. This one, if you can see this looks like a radiator. Well, this is coolant. And if you look on the side of here, you can barely see this where it kind of says full, and it has a little line under it. Well, if the fluid is between that and down here where it says add, if it's between these two, you're good to go. The middle one over here, which you really can't see, this is power steering fluid. There's a line on it. It's down in here. There's fluid there. I think that's good enough for the power steering fluid. If it's empty, obviously put some power steering fluid in. So what we've done is we've checked the coolant, which is good. We've checked the power steering fluid, which is good. And we're going to just go ahead and top off this. Just because this is orange doesn't mean you have to put orange in it. I'm going to use this good stuff. It's just O'Reilly's windshield washer fluid. And I got it because it's cheap. So we'll just top it off. And look at that, I spilled some. And you know what? It doesn't matter because it will dry up in no time. If you spill a little bit of windshield washer fluid, don't worry about it. That's this half of the engine check. Now we're going to go work on the other side. We're back over on the driver's side of the engine, at least this engine. We're going to take this piece out because we need to get access to this. And what's inside here is the air filter for the engine. So what I need to do is get this cover off. And most cars, normal cars, don't have bolts all over the place to hold this cap on. They have little clips and you just clip them and this kind of slides off. The engineer that designed this was insane. Put a bunch of bolts in. These two are 10 mil bolts. We'll take this one off and then we have 83 8mm bolts. So let me grab the wrenches and I'll get that done. The rest of these I'm gonna zip off. This should just lift off now. Thank you. And twist out of the way. And here's our air filter. This case, it's a cylindrical filter. It just pulls out. While it might not look that dirty, it's been a while since it's been replaced. So, new filter. Same thing. Literally just slides in place like that. Now we can put this monstrosity back on. Slides in place. We'll get these bolts put back in. And the final bolt goes here. And there we have this. Air filter, everything put back in place. So we're all good up here. The air filter, cap's back on. We've checked the oil, we've looked at the coolant, we've looked at power steering, and we've topped off the windshield washer fluid. Now we need to check the very last thing up here, the brake fluid. Very important. If you look very closely, there's a line that says add, and there's a line here that says full. I'm going to put a light right on top of it, and you can see where the fluid is. And the fluid is right below the full. You see where the dark part is, where the light is not shining through as much? That's where the fluid is, and it's right at the full. So we're just going to leave that as is. We are done up here. I'm going to clean these towels off of here, and we're going to start this car. I've started the car. The oil's good. The oil pressure looked good. Let's go ahead and check this again. Wipe it down first. In, out. I think we are right below the full mark, so I am going to actually add a little bit more. Let's do this one more time. And there we are, straight on the hatch marks. That's perfect. Get the cap back on. Very good. We've verified that the oil is full. Everything else is perfect. We're going to get this off the ramps. One of the last things you need to do after you've changed the oil is essentially tell your car that you've changed the oil. If you can see, this one actually says oil life 7%. So I did change it a little bit early, but that's fine with me. We'll talk about that in the post video. To reset this one, so I've put the key in. You turn the key to on, but don't start the engine, just on. And then within 10 seconds, push the gas pedal all the way to the floor 3 times and you will see it reset. And there you go.